So if you're a self-builder, your list of possibilities for renewables are going to be heat pumps, solar PV, underfloor heating, mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, possibly solar thermal. Building fabrics have a tendency to overheat. If you've got high area of glazing in the design, then you're certainly going to want to look at perhaps uprating your mechanical ventilation system to move more airflow. You can do a little bit of passive cooling. It's not easy to do. We generally look at comfort cooling now, so add comfort cooling in as well, and we have a system for that, and we can design that into the overall package. So the time to start thinking about renewables and the overall design of your heating and your hot water system is really at the point that the plans are being drawn up. Because if you're going to include things like ventilation, comfort cooling, ductwork needs to be provided. But I think it's important that they really do make a decision at the time they're setting their overall budget, because as we said earlier, the cost of the system is going to be that much higher than a traditional central heating system. So it certainly would be sensible to allocate the right amount of budget. We can then go on that journey with you. We can look at the return on the investment. We can look at the various different products that will be available to you, and then we can design that. And then we can sit back, they can get their planning consent, they can commence their build, and then they come back to us sometimes 2-3 years later. And pretty much people come back and say, right, we're ready to go now. Can you revise your quote? And let's get going. It's important that any economically savvy person would go out and get maybe 1 or 2 quotes from different organisations, but what we do stress is do not mix and match. There are a lot of internet-based companies today that do a very good job, they have a reasonably good quality product, but because of the nature of their business model, it's an off-the-shelf type system. But if you've got a heat pump that has a certain characteristic and you need to design the underfloor heating system to match the output of that heat pump in a certain way, it makes sense to design the two together. So it's always important that this is done. If you get the best price for your underfloor from this company over here, your best price for your heat pump from this company here, and the best price for your solar or your ventilation, you can have multiple people on site fitting it and falling over each other. They may not necessarily interface correctly together. And then if there are any problems, you know, there's going to be finger pointing as who's responsible for fixing it. So who do I call if it goes wrong? You know, I don't know whether it's related to the underfloor heating controls. I don't know if it's related to the heat pump controls. Somebody has to take responsibility. By having that one organisation in the mix, then they're responsible for all of it. You know, if you've contracted with one organisation to design a complete holistic solution, they're the people you go to. They're the people that've got to sort it out. Easy. It's extremely important that you find the right organisation to work with, put your trust in with them and let them take over the design of this integrated solution. It's a very unwieldy thing to do, you know, because if you're a self-builder, you're not only looking at your heating system, which is perhaps a less glamorous part of the overall project. You know, you're going to be getting excited about the kitchens and the fittings and the TV and the home cinema and the gym possibly, if you've got quite a lavish budget. But the renewables side of it is so important because it can quite easily go wrong if you don't have the right people involved in the design. We can provide a completely comprehensive service to give that pre-sale design and engagement. We can put a team in place that are going to take the stress and the worry over the end job being delivered on spec and on budget, and then we can hand off to the service partners to look after it from that point going forwards. To take away that risk is really the biggest factor, because by getting multiple people involved, the risk just goes up. It's exponential, the amount of risk in getting different people involved because of the added complexity of all these different people coming and going and trying to interpret the design and making sure that it's integrated. So incentive-wise, that's a very important piece of it, because the overall return on investment is not only based on savings, that's really only a small part. It's about the government scheme which is called the Renewable Heat Incentive, RHI. It's a scheme that's based on 20 years of use, so they've estimated amount of spend on a system and they've amortised that cost into a 7-year time period. So by meeting the eligibility criteria of purchasing the equipment yourself as a self-builder, fitting it, having it commissioned by an MCS approved organisation such as ourselves, you have to be MCS approved. We then can provide the paperwork, the guidance on claiming the grants. It's paid quarterly over a 7-year period direct into the homeowner's bank account, and it's index linked to inflation. It's tax-free, and generally that money should equate to the capital cost of that system. So a 7-year payback is not a bad return on a system that's generally going to cost, on average, for say an air source heat pump, about £10,000–11,000 installed.